You are live, it says. All right. Another live introducing you today to another fabulous female in the low carb space. What a thrill to have Jayne Bullen as part of the Low Carb Lifestyle Long Weekend. Jayne is the CEO of the Nutrition Network, the COO of the Noakes Foundation, and co founder of Eat Better South Africa. What a phenomenal list of responsibilities you have, Jayne.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels like a lot
Yeah,
when
it
you say
sounds like a lot.
that. And it is. We're busy and we have a lot to do. We've got a lot to do.
Yeah.
A lot of work to do. So,
Yes,
mm.
you do. You do. And I will just share with everybody because we were talking, try and give everyone a little bit of time to come on as well. But we were talking just before we went live about, how much of an inspiration you personally are to me. I've watched the work that you do and am so inspired by the way you do your work and the femininity and the courage that you bring to, I guess I see you mostly through the Nutrition Network, and it's just very inspiring and has inspired a lot of the work that I do. And I actually am going to talk about you personally, a story you probably won't even know. When someone touches you, sometimes you don't even know it. Well, I'm going to share it in my talk in the summit.
Oh,
So,
thank you. Oh, that's so special. Thank you for sharing that. Looking forward to it now even more than I was.
yes, me too. Well, I would actually love you before we talk about what you're talking about. Are you able to just share a little bit about what your day looks like? I mean, you have such a massive responsibilities. What's it like living in Jayne?
Okay, so I have a 14-year-old boy going on 25, so there's a lot of mom stuff involved in my day too. And yeah, just really, really busy. I have an incredible team that I work with. I'm not going to say they work for me because we work together and we are very, very collaborative in the way that we do things. So there's just constant exciting things going on within our world. And obviously it's quite broad and diverse. So we have it's grown from what was just the Noakes Foundation 8 years ago when I joined as the first appointed employee. We've grown into quite a big growing organization with a lot of activities. I mean, I think at the moment we've got about 8 to 10 research studies that are ongoing. We've got a massive pool of researchers. We've got a team, I was saying to you just before, that's predominantly female and women, not by design, just how it's ended up. We're always very, very keen to interview and have men coming forward for our roles, and it just always seems to be quite a feminine skewed team. So a lot of sort of fun chitter chatter between us, and we're busy all the time. So we're doing everything from kind of global policy discussions to amazing things like these kinds of summits to actually on the ground work with local communities, which is where our heart center is based. And I'm going to talk about that a bit in my talk at the summit, which is kind of our big why. We do a lot of big work in the world in the low carb movement, which is around changing food systems, but bringing it home to South Africa, which is where I live and where my heart is, and how we impact local communities is a daily challenge to myself. It's like we can do all this stuff that's quite abstract and that is changing systems over a period of 20 years, but how are we every day changing like at least one person's life in a positive way? And that's important to my day. It's like, well, what have I done today that made a difference in some small way locally? What was the local impact?
I love that so much. And it just seems that, from the outside looking in and, you do have all that ground stuff going on, which is amazing, but you have such a global, I mean, certainly with the Nutrition Network and the Noakes Foundation, what a global arm. And the Nutrition Network is just growing. I just am so inspired by what, that's just constantly moving forward, challenging yourself, new ideas, new things, putting stuff out there. It's just such an exciting, it must be an exciting place and sometimes pretty tiring place to work.
Yes, I mean, yeah, we obviously we're incredibly lucky. We're busy and we are 24/7, which is really interesting because
Yeah.
we are a global organization. So a lot of it is about actually managing time limits and one's ability to show up constantly. And I think that's an important thing, particularly because summit is around women's health. It's like looking at, how we especially, and I think it's particularly specific to this movement and this sector, is that we all get so passionate about it and we love it so much. And it's the levels of burnout in medicine in healthcare are abnormally high. They're probably the highest they've ever been in history. And as women, we are doing it all. And we love what we do. I mean, I absolutely love my job, but there's a big part of me that also has to regularly step back and go, okay, let me check in with myself. Let me check in with my family, with my health, and to step back and go, okay, well, the world is scary, that things carry on. And there is always so much to do. And we're growing so fast. This movement is growing so fast. COVID has exacerbated the need for the work that we do so dramatically.
Yeah.
That it's an amazing, amazing time to be doing this work. And I know that we're in the same, I sort of see you as part of the same organization or community. So it's probably the same for you and for women that are doing this work all over the world. But we've also got to come back to, okay, here I am.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's my body. I mean, I have to feed it and nurture it as well as doing the big work. And that's that constant balance. That's so
and critical. To hear someone like you, of your position say that, it is so important, and I think it's just so easy to have everything else, take care of everything else and everyone else. But I've certainly seen myself that just doesn't work long term. It doesn't work for me. And then ultimately it doesn't work for anybody else as well. So I do love that. I think it's really important to do it. Jayne, can I ask you, but when you joined the Noakes, so the Noakes Foundation was the first were you already low carb, or did you kind of find it as you came in, or?
So I'd been low carb on and off for probably a decade before that, and I knew that I should be. So I did the Atkins and had amazing results. I've had metabolic disease from 21. I had PCOS when I was 21, and I've had a life of kind of working on diets. And I would say when I joined the foundation, I was probably eating healthily, but not particularly low carb. And I was incredibly lucky in the first week of my job at the foundation. Sami Inkinen was in town. He's now the CEO of Virta Health. Virta Health didn't exist then. He was in town for the launch. He was here to do a cycling race, but we had a big launch of Serial Killers 2. And I watched the movie, and we went for a late birthday dinner. It was my fiance's birthday that night. And I said to him, that's it, I'm done. I'm never eating another carbohydrate again. Like I'm totally committed. Like it sold me. And then of course, over the years, I mean, in this role, just the absolute mind-blowing impact of the simple carbohydrate restriction principle and how it impacts so many lives. And it's so transformational, has been overwhelming. So I wasn't, but it's very low carb. And then I spent 4 years, very strictly ketogenic. And I would say now I found a mean between extreme, strict zero carb and something that's a little bit different in my own diet and life.
Fantastic. And it's so nice to get to that place where you can find your balance, because I think that as a coach, that's what I encourage my clients to do as well. These are sort of the principles, and go embrace the journey, try different things, but then you will, if you give it time and patience, and you relax into it a little bit, you will find your little version of low carb.
And for some people, for me, it's been quite a long journey, and it's still a long journey. So I would say I'm probably nowhere close to my goal weight. I'm far from perfect. And that's also part of it, is to actually know that it's not cut and dry for everyone. So important to just hold that space and to remember that, and to remember that it's not always entirely simple, but it is for most people. It's really, really incredible to see that. And this, I would say, honestly, between 80 and 90% of the people that step into the low carb as novel low carbers for a particular reason that we know is associated and works for low carb, it's 100% transformational in their lives. Yeah. And that is mind-blowing. Like, there is no diet on earth, and also, I don't want to call it a diet, but there's no medication or prescription or diagnosis on earth that can be treated that well and that resolves most metabolic complications that well. So that's the evidence we need. Of course, there are all the studies out there now, but you don't actually need to read the studies. You need to go onto some of these groups and look at the before and after photos, and that should be enough. Things are like, they are incredible to witness. And we see them every day,
absolutely. And it goes so far beyond the weight loss. It's ridiculous. That's just the tip of the iceberg, isn't it? The mental health, the food freedom, just obviously all the other health benefits that just come part and parcel with it. And I think it's just, it just constantly opens up new doors and new things. And it is, it's wonderful. Well, I would love you to share a little bit around. So you're talking the summit is diet and hope, bringing hope back to healthcare. What a conversation.
So I wanted to talk about this because I think we don't talk enough about hope and inspiration. We focus a lot on the science, and that's relevant, and I'm going to share some of the science in my talk, but I feel like we've come from a place of hopelessness. And it was long before COVID. You know, people are saying, oh, COVID's sort of medicine's at an all-time space of hopelessness, and burnouts at an all-time high, and depression, suicide, mental health conditions in the healthcare sector are the highest they've ever been. Well, to be honest, they were pretty bad before COVID. And I think COVID's allowed the space for this to be talked about. But I mean, what I've seen in my 8+ years in this sector is just immense hopelessness, immense burnout, and a feeling of complete overwhelm. And it's predominantly driven by chronic disease. I mean, it's really a sense of like, I'm getting these patients in day after day. So, you know, some doctors are treating hundreds, if not thousands of patients a month, certainly in South Africa, but I know it's the same elsewhere in clinics in particular. And nothing works, and I'm sending them home to die. And how do we change this? How can we change this? And of course, there's a very small, the low carb community and the group of doctors that have actually converted and that work in this area is very small compared to overall medicine in the world and overall healthcare. Yep. So we sort of drown ourselves in this knowledge and feel like everyone understands it, but that's not the case. And there is an overwhelming sense of hopelessness out there. And it's dire because most healthcare workers and doctors are good people who chose to do what they're doing because they love human beings, and they are healers and they want to help. And they're in a position where they can't, you know, they can't help people. They can't treat them. The medication's not working. So for me, something has to change, and we know what it is. We have the solution in our quite small community, which is just a set of tools that gives hope to patients and that gives hope back to healthcare. They can, if they can be armed, and if on a much larger scale, primary care, you know, physicians and healthcare at large can be armed with a better toolkit, not just the kind of Merck medicine manual that's going to send someone away with a bag of prescription drugs, then things are going to change. And we know this because we know that the body naturally heals itself. We know that humans are intrinsically well, and when in a homeostatic healthy environment, healing happens. And doctors know this. So we have to go back to a kind of medicine and a kind of understanding where, you know, there is an understanding and appreciation of the wellness and the intrinsic healing abilities of the human body. And we have that toolkit it's very clear in the low carb community. It's got a lot to do with diet, but it's also got a lot to do with all of the other inputs into the body. So it's what we're eating and it's what we're consuming, which is obviously medication, it's the air we breathe, it's the water we drink, it's what else is it? It's the company and thoughts that we hold, it's our macro environment, it's many things. But we start with diet. We start with what are we putting into our bodies. So I want to talk about that and just some examples of where hope has come back. You know, that patient-doctor relationship that has been so broken in the last couple of decades has changed. We're seeing examples of incredible transformations and relationships being rebuilt and people healing themselves from the most terrible things. And that gives me hope. Every day I'm given hope through what I see in my job and the people that I engage with. And I would love for the rest of healthcare to have that opportunity to just have an inkling of that hope. So that's what I'm going to talk about, is how we do actually bring hope back. And I want to share with you that, so last week we had a meeting with one of the largest medical aids in our country, in South Africa, and it was with their diabetes team. And they said to us, have you ever actually seen somebody reverse or remit their diabetes? And we were like, and they haven't. They haven't. And that was when it really made me realize, like, that's something that's like common knowledge. I mean, it's what we do. It's what we see, you know, many times a day. Or most of the people I work with have reversed some kind of chronic disease, if not diabetes and a couple of other things. And they, as a diabetes healthcare leader, haven't seen that and haven't been given any sense of hope. So we need to talk about hope and what it looks like and how it feels to be hopeful again about health.
Yeah. Oh, that makes me so sad. But it's so, as you say, if we go just that little bit out of this space, that would be a very common story.
And it's beautiful to surround ourselves with hope because we know that there is hope. So part of it is from a compassion perspective. It's like, well, what's going on out there in the world? And I know we're short of time, but I also just want to talk about the model of how we moved through and found hope, and the work and the actions that came with it, which is that obviously a part of it is seeing clearly and seeing what's around us in our environment, which has to come from, we have to be healthy to be able to see clearly. And from a place of clarity, we start to feel compassion and often outrage at what's happening around us in the world. And then we are called to act. And everyone that comes to this low carbohydrate movement has been called to act, whether it's through just changing their own diets or through changing the communities around them. So I'm going to just share the model that we've used here and why it's worked and why it's brought a lot of hope back to many.
Oh, that just sounds so wonderful. I can't wait to watch it. I can't wait to share it. I can't wait for people to feel your hope and to see how hope works in action, because it is about the action, right? That's what we need. And it is something that is so, it's just everywhere in the low carb space, which I love. And I think it does come back to this clarity, we're being fueled by this incredible vision to do what we're doing. And I can't wait. I need to let you go. I know you're very busy, and I so appreciate your time, your energy, your knowledge, your wisdom, and I can't wait to watch your talk in the summit. Thank you so much, Jayne.
Back at you. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day. Thanks everyone for dialing in.
Bye.
Bye.